Hello everyone. Welcome to our much awaited panel discussion on AI and future warfare. And I'm extremely happy to be with you this afternoon and to have an immense honor to sit here with Lieutenant General Raj Shukla and Colonel Vinay Bhatt, as well as with Mr. Samuel Bendet, a US expert in Russia's drone warfare. As perfectly explained by Sir this morning in his keynote lecture, due to its capabilities in processing vast amounts of data, making rapid decisions, and adapting to fast-evolving situations, AI has the potential to cover all the aspects of warfare, from strategic planning to tactical execution, through logistics, training, intelligence, and of course, identifying, tracking, and engaging targets. This is why I wanted today to invite specialists in military affairs, not only having different fields of expertise, but also evolving at various levels of analysis. Lieutenant Raj, at the strategic level, knows well how to define and identify targets, I would say. Colonel Vinayak, at the tactical level, knows perfectly how to spot and track targets. And Mr. Samuel, at the operational level, knows perfectly how weapon systems help to eliminate targets with the help of AI. But before starting our group discussion, I would like each of our speakers to have a very short, like 10-minute presentation in order to expose the nature of their approach to AI in warfare and let our audience understand from which perspective they assess this problematic. And first of all, Lieutenant General, if you are ready, you can start.
Okay, thank you, Julian. Now, Julian has given me 10 minutes, so what I'll do, I just want to spend 2 minutes, to throw some thoughts on how India's national security perspective should evolve, and then about 8 minutes on what's happening in Ukraine. See, the first point I would like to make is this, that as I said in the morning, it does seem to me that this is India's moment. But we need to secure India's inevitable rise. And securing that rise means we must invest in deterrence. There are no free lunches. People say deterrence is costly. I say wars are costlier. Ask the Ukrainians. So deterrence needs to be invested in. 2, India has of course been a land of spiritual thinkers, but it has also been a land of very hard-nosed realists. We must never forget that. Just as Vasudev Kutumbakam is a wonderful thought, don't forget the words of Swami Vivekananda, who said that the world is but a gymnasium where nations come to make themselves strong. It's a hard world. You have to make yourself strong. 3, the mistake that we made in the first part of our journey after independence was that we broke expertise into silos, wasteful silos, civil, military, academia, government, private, public, all that has to come together. And there is a lovely Indian expression to say why it should come together. It talks of the Mishran of Saraswati, Lakshmi and Durga. See what a wonderful thought it is. It says that in your academia, create these instruments of excellence which generate wealth. And wealth is not a bad thing. Lakshmi is part of our culture. Use that wealth, of course, for prosperity and for a whole lot of social deliveries. Also put away some of it to nurse your instruments of power, Durga. So Saraswati, Lakshmi and Durga. So the metaphor for the future must be civil-military fusion and not civil-military silos. That's the next thing. Lastly, I would just like to paraphrase the Prime Minister, who had a wonderful word. He said, Shanti ki chah or Shakti ki rah bhin nahi hai. The roads to peace and the road to power are synonymous. So we must, in my view, stop drawing these artificial distinctions, and therefore gatherings like this are very good. Unless academia is strong, today national security is so complex and sophisticated, it cannot do with talent from academia and all these places. So as we, in the next set of our national security endeavors, it would be wise that we pay attention to some of that, what I have said. Now, coming to AI, and here now I'm making a reference to AI and a penumbra of technologies, not just AI alone. So the coming together of AI, drones, robotics, data leveraging, so on and so forth. It is revolutionizing warfare, and the best example of that is Ukraine. I'll give you some examples. It will give you it will suggest to you what we should do in our context. The first part is that most of these technologies are not dual use, they are omni use. They get used everywhere. So AI is being leveraged not only in the military space, but also in the wider defense and the still wider strategizing. I'll just give you examples from Ukraine. So it is my view that AI and these technologies are and will transform national security. They will impact the global order and create a new set of strategic haves and have-nots. So we have no option but to develop a technologically enabled strategic military enterprise in India. And I'm saying carefully, it's far beyond the military. The military alone cannot do it. It has to be sharp minds from all walks of life. AI could be the secret sauce for the asymmetric addressal of China. I'll give you a quick example. America spends $950 billion on defense rather inefficiently. China spends just $3 billion very efficiently. And therefore today China is causing far greater displacement anxiety in Washington. We with an $85 billion budget are not causing similar displacement anxieties in Beijing. Because in the whole defense space, if you get all these other things together, there are smarter ways of doing what I call asymmetric addressal. And in this asymmetric addressal, AI and these other technologies could be the secret sauce. So we must invest them with great care. And see what's happening in Ukraine. It has been a good laboratory for AI, and as I said, a penumbra of associated technologies. What is happening? Now, Ukraine people have said it's a first world war with drones. What it means is that you see the squadron company battles, the blood and the gore, all that death and all that will go on. But all that is being impacted greatly by what is happening in the character of war. General Mark Milley, the last chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff in USA, he said that technology has affected the character of war in Ukraine, and this effect has been the most profound and the greatest in recorded history. Recorded history. I agree with Mark Milley, and now I'll tell you why. And so that is the space for technology. There's no time to go into the nitty-gritty, perhaps Vinayak will. The impact is across the grids of war and across theaters. Land, air, sea, today it's going into space, cyber, the electromagnetic spectrum. It is affecting intelligence, surveillance, targeting, fire, maneuver, logistics, decision-making. In the military, there's a lovely word called the OODA loop, which means your ability to, observe, orient, so on and so forth. And the military, which is ahead in the OODA loop, is going to win. In the OODA loop, these technologies have enabled you to be 100 steps ahead of your adversary. It'll be a big misnomer to say that that Ukraine is just a war of trenches. It is, of course, a war of trenches, greatly enabled by AI. There was one startup, Helsing. Just Google it. It was an AI startup. It decided to make the most of Ukraine. In AI, in Ukraine, this startup has become a unicorn, Helsing. So there are business opportunities in defense. If you don't want to come for the love of the military, come for the money in the military. There's huge money to be made. So, and we need bright minds. Look at the Palantir CEO, Alex Karp. He sensed an opportunity and just began, when the Ukrainian offensive began, he went by road from Poland, went and met Zelensky. And what is the deal that he has done? He said, just give us all your data, all the data that is being generated of the war in Ukraine. We will give you products for free. And obviously, all the data that he's getting, he's using it to upgrade all his combat and other systems for application worldwide. Data for free. The Ukrainians, there is a combat barter on. They are, in exchange for data, acquiring weapons and platforms for free. This is what data can do, the power of data. It has conclusively become a war of algorithms, coders, and software engineers. The Ukrainian infantry battalions today are recruiting 1 software engineer and 3 coders per battalion. Unheard of in my time. Unheard of in my time. This is how the war is changing there. And see, the biggest problem in the military is what? That they are unwilling to unlock their combat data. Vinayak would know this. We are very possessive about our data because it is secret. But the day you unlock your data, when data begins talking to data, your combat is taken to a new level. The military doesn't quite understand it. They need to be persuaded. But those militaries that do, warfare goes to another level. This is exactly what's happening. Now look at the power of data. Data, OSINT data, which is available open source. Data from NATO, data from Five Eyes, data from common citizens, and data from the war theater is being integrated in Ukraine. If one reason the Ukrainians have been able to survive the Russians, it is because of their innovation and their exploitation of data. Otherwise, Russia is a far more powerful military. This is innovation. Innovation cycles are delivering in 6 months what traditional procurement systems would deliver in 8 years. This is the whole, power of, look at the great efficacy of unmanned systems. Perhaps Samuel will talk about it. Today, Zelensky has announced that Ukraine will raise an unmanned force. It's like raising a separate Indian army. This is the power of drones. So there are surveillance drones, there are strike drones, they are eclipsing maneuver. Moment platoons come out of their hide, they are taken apart by drones. I mean, a brigade of crewed drones have displaced the powerful Black Sea Fleet. A brigade of crewed drones has allowed grain trade to resume. So I call this the power of asymmetricity and the magic of precision. When drones started combat, it would take 15 rounds to hit the target. Today, with all the AI-enabled, data-enabled precisionry, you are hitting the target on the first round. What military people used to call first salvo effectiveness, it was always elusive. It is a reality today. This is the power of the magic of precisionry. Look at the power of asymmetricity. Let's shift to another theater, West Asia. So the Americans have 11 aircraft carriers, the $950 billion, 800 bases, 11 aircraft carriers. Iranians were watching for years. Whenever there was trouble in West Asia, the American carriers would go and everybody would retreat into their shells. So they invested in 4 land instruments of power. Which were those? Hamas, the Houthis, the Shia militias, and the Hezbollah, and gave them drones and missiles. They have cleverly integrated these drones and missiles into these integrated packages, and now Houthis are challenging the USS Enterprise. American power projection into West Asia is being challenged by Houthis, and this is the power of asymmetricity, of innovation, of creative thinking. And this is something, which we need in the context of the Indian military. Look at what small things can do. Have you ever wondered why suddenly we don't hear of Russian air power there? Russian air power, Su-30s and all? I mean, we were always told that, air will create havoc. You will get air superiority. The Russian military air power has been underwhelming in its presence in Ukraine. No air superiority, no interdiction. Just because of a smart tightening up of the AD network, surveillance, targeting radars, smart tightening up through exchange of data and data leveraging. This is the power of data. So look at what the Chinese are doing in the extreme. The Chinese are even more ambitious. They have taken these 7 domains: land, air, sea, undersea, space, cyber, EW. And they are integrating sensors and shooters across these 7 domains as part of their rocket force. That should worry us greatly. They have raised a strategic support force. It is an euphemism for AI enablement. So they have raised an entire service to enable the PLA through AI. And of course, capture of the, electromagnetic spectrum. And what has it done? I'll just take 2, do I have time? 3 more minutes? Look at this, 1995, the Chinese act smart, and Bill Clinton dispatches an aircraft carrier to the Taiwan Strait, and the Chinese immediately back off. Today, now that the Chinese have got the rocket force and the strategic support force, which is actually an instrument for precision targeting enabled by AI and smart leveraging of data. American admirals are advising the president that don't send aircraft carriers, they'll get sunk. So what is happening through these military instruments, that America's ability to project power across the globe in West Asia, in the Western Pacific, is being undermined. Americans are asking questions that why spend $950 billion, have 800 bases and 11 aircraft carriers when you have to make a rather inglorious exit from Afghanistan, when your deterrence fails in Ukraine, and when the Houthis question you in West Asia. So the lesson for us from all this is that we, in the evolution of our statecraft of tomorrow, Indian statecraft, must not copy flopping Western models. They're not working. We must question them, and young people like you must question them and see how we could do better in this space. We have the smartest engineers, we have the smartest IT professionals, we have the best minds. It's a pity they are wasting their time in Europe and America. They must return. They must return, and we must, of course, create the ecosystem for them to because there is all this that needs to be done. Just last two examples. Look at how private sector and startups are driving national security. When I was growing up, private sector and startups were taboo. You couldn't be seen speaking to a private sector guy because private sector was not okay with the government. Today you are being invited. I'll quote the Prime Minister to you. He says, Atmanirbharta in defense is about liberating the forces of innovation, energy and enterprise from the scourge of process and procedure. He tells the government कि जो आपने नियमों का जाल बिछा रखा है, इसको हटाइए. Be more welcoming. And why? Because we know that the future in defense without private sector and startups, Atmanirbharta in defense phase 2 has to be driven by the private sector and startups. You need talent and all, of that kind. So look at Starlinks. What has Starlinks done? Starlinks, in a critical phase of operations in Ukraine, enables Zelensky to communicate with global councils. It enables Zelensky to beef up troop morale and street resolve. It is also being used for targeting artillery. I spoke of this crude brigade, this crude drone brigade. So there's an interesting episode that in one of these operations, the Ukrainians were wanting to target, using these crude drones to target the Black Sea fleet using Starlinks. And Elon Musk got wind of it and he said, no, why do you want to do it? And the Ukrainians gave their reasons. Now to check the Russian response, he gets in touch with the Russians. And the Russians tell him, no, if you do this, it will escalate. So Elon Musk calls it off. So now is Elon Musk CEO of SpaceX, or is he National Security Advisor? That is the power of private sector and startups today in this whole thing. Just one last point. Vinayak is of course the expert. The Indian military was struggling with space for long. We were told, we have these big satellites, Insat 1A, 1B, 1C, which are actually fat, juicy targets. They'll be knocked off in the first day of combat. And they will come in 25, 26, and we could never get our act together. Look at what that Space Labs has done. Space Labs today has taken 20 areas of priority in Ukraine, of tactical operational priority, and it is giving them revisit times 10 times in 24 hours, which is about 2 hours, which is virtually persistent surveillance, means I can see the battlefield. When I was there, which is just 2 years back, the best revisit time you had was 10 days. This is how phenomenal the changes in technology and all this. And these are all the lessons coming out of Ukraine. We are, of course, doing a lot of stuff. We could do a little more. And since I flipped the page, just one more point, hypersonics. Look at this. Today you have hypersonics missiles operating in Mach 7, Mach 8, varying trajectories of unimaginable precision. Now, when they are being driven by capacities in machine learning and artificial intelligence, you cannot have interception based on human judgment. So that is how the game has shifted. If the hypersonics are going to be driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning, interception has to be driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning. So if the Chinese hypersonic capability is pretty robust, our AD systems have to get upgraded. So in arena after arena, in theater after theater, there are just two arguments. One is we have to smarten up, which means we need talent. So I'm giving you 3 mantras for our national security for the future. Talent, technology, and tradition. So talent, we all understand. Technology, we've done enough. Tradition in the sense, Indian traditions of statecraft, which are innovative, creative, imaginative, both in deterrence and war fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, General, for this very interesting insight on India's strategy regarding AI and warfare.